Failure is not the opposite of success. It's a part of it. Meaning, there is no such thing as success without failure, because the only way to become successful is to go through failure. It's the only way. Today, I'm going to talk about something that I don't think anybody's ever talked about. Not from an ego perspective or an arrogant perspective, but I've just never heard anyone communicate what I'm about to communicate with you guys today, which is all about changing your relationship with what the world considers bad. Changing your relationship with what the world considers negative. You know, one of my favorite subjects to talk about is that the quality of your life will come down to the quality of your labeling. Meaning, if you label something bad, your mind will go to work to figure out a way to prove you right. So if you believe something should be bad, your mind will go to work to filter in everything to validate that belief that you want to have so bad, which is that it's bad. But if we can change our labeling to something's good, now our mind will go to work to validate our belief. So if we can change our labeling, we can change our entire life. And so what I want to go over is 5 things that the world considers to be bad, that if we change our labeling, we can turn it to good. And if we can turn it to good, the likelihood of us becoming successful is going to go through the roof, because it all comes down to our labeling. It all comes down to how we look at life, how we look at a situation. And so the first thing that the world considers to be bad, which I've labeled in my mind as good, is adversity. Most people, when they hear adversity, they think negative. They think problem. They think downfall. They think everything's going wrong. The sky is falling. And I had a mentor early on in my career that said, on the other side of every adversity, there's a greater than or equal to blessing waiting on the other side, as long as you look for it. And so throughout the years, one of the things that I've realized, it's not just about me looking for it, it's about me qualifying for the blessing. Meaning that if adversity hits and I want the blessing that's on the other side of it, the adversity, meaning I want to claim the 7-fold return, the only way to do that is if I go through adversity with honor, if I go through adversity with integrity, if I go through adversity in a positive way, if I treat people right, then once I get through this adversity, now all of a sudden I feel like I am deserving of the blessing. And so it's kind of like, send me my return. I was willing to make the investment, send me my return. This perspective is a huge perspective shift that can lead to you winning and you succeeding. Because part of winning in business, part of winning in life, there's going to be a lot of what, quote unquote adversity. There's going to be a lot of problems. There's going to be a lot of situations that pop up. And so if we just assume that all these situations are bad, our mind's going to go to work to prove that they're bad. But if we can start to label it as a blessing, meaning adversity equals blessing, not adversity equals problem. Once again, adversity equals blessing, not adversity equals problem. So if we can start to label adversity as a blessing, our mind will now go to work to find the blessing. And I want to encourage you to change your labeling in that perspective, because if you do, it will shift your entire life. It will shift your entire career. The second thing that the world considers bad is worry, doubt, fear, anxiety. They have a negative relationship with these emotions. What I've learned to do is create a positive relationship with these emotions. Well, Matt, what do you mean by this? Well, what I mean is that those are the emotions of the enemy. Those are emotions of the adversary. Those are the emotions of what I consider the devil. What I do know is that our Creator does not operate in worry, doubt, fear, and anxiety. Our Creator does not operate in those emotions. So when I feel those emotions, in my mind, that's a sign to advance. That's a sign to execute. Because if I'm feeling those emotions, the enemy is trying to keep me from executing, which means that on the other side of the execution is a blessing and there's something that's going to allow me to step into my God-given gifts. And so what's so powerful about changing your relationship with these emotions is that now when you feel them, you know, okay, this is the enemy at work. If the enemy is at work, I need to advance, because the enemy's trying to keep me from gold. The enemy's trying to keep me from doing something great. The enemy's trying to keep me from my purpose. And so if we can change our labeling and change our relationship with these quote unquote negative emotions, now these negative emotions become positive. The third thing that the world is considered to be bad is the word risk. And I think a lot of people are afraid to try because they're afraid to risk something. They're afraid to risk and it not work out. And I want you to start looking at risk as opportunity. The difference between people that go on to become extremely successful financially in entrepreneurship, business, sports, whatever it is, it's always those who are willing to risk. And one of the reasons that they are willing to risk is because they have faith. faith in a higher power, but also faith in themselves. They've built a reputation with themselves that they will figure out a way. If you look back at your life and you look at everything that you've ever gone through, you would have so much more confidence when it comes to everything that you have to go through that's coming up in front of you. Matt, what do you mean by this? What I mean is that you've made it through everything in life, yet you're still standing and you're still breathing. Why in the world would you think that there's an obstacle in front of you that's going to keep you from making it through? Your track record is 100 for 100. You've made it through everything in life so far. There's nothing that's in front of you that you can't make it through also. And so things are no longer a risk. They become an opportunity. You know, when you look up the definition of an entrepreneur, the definition of an entrepreneur is somebody who's willing to take some level of financial risk in order to get some level of financial gain, which means that without risk, there's no reward. Without risk, there is no opportunity. Typically, when there's a high risk, there's also high opportunity because so few people are willing to take that risk. But if you are willing to jump off the cliff, build the plane on the way down, not looking at things as a risk, but looking at things as an opportunity, your perspective begins to change and your mind will start to find opportunities because it's no longer seeking risk, it's seeking pleasure that comes from the opportunity itself. And so the third thing that people need to change their labeling on is risk. The fourth thing that people need to change their labeling on is cost. If you want to succeed in business, if you want to succeed in entrepreneurship, we need to start looking at things as an investment, not a cost. Cost is something you don't get back, meaning I pay for something, there is no return. An investment is something that has a return on it. If you invest in the stock market, you expect a return. If you invest in real estate, you expect a return. When you are willing to make an investment in you and or your business, expect a return. Things are not costs, they're investments. And when you start to look at things in that manner, it gives you the ability to invest money that you would not be willing to invest if you were shaping it as a cost. As I was coming up in entrepreneurship, I come from a family that was rich in love, but money was tight. It was always pretty tight. And so because of this, there was a lot of frugality, meaning that unless it was a need, an absolute need for survival, there wasn't really a reason to buy it and or pay for it. Things were looked at as a cost. So I was raised in an environment where be super frugal, hold on to your money, preserve it, save for a rainy day. And so I was always afraid to invest money into things that would scale my business, like staff, technology, CRMs, leads, whatever it might be. I was always afraid marketing. I was afraid to invest in my business because I was afraid that I wasn't going to get a return. Why? Because I was shaping it as a cost, not an investment. And if you want to succeed in business, entrepreneurship, you have to be willing to shift that mentality to this is an investment. It's not a cost. Investments give me returns. Costs don't. So if I can get a return on this, I should do it for my business. I should be willing to stop being frugal and be smart with my money in the sense that I'm going to get a return. And then last but not least, the fifth label that we need to change is failure. Failure, failure, failure. Our world is afraid of failure. Our world's afraid of it. Everyone in our world is afraid to fail. They're afraid to try and fall on their face. They're afraid to try and things not work out. And I want to be very clear with you. Failure is not the opposite of success. It's a part of it. Meaning there is no such thing as success without failure because the only way to become successful is to go through failure. It's the only way. That's how you build grit. That's how you build calluses on your brain. That's how you become tough. That's how you become wise. You make a mistake, you learn from it, and now you become wise. That's how you get good is through failure. So I want to challenge you to seek failure. For instance, I was in the gym this morning, and as I was doing biceps this morning, in order to build my muscle, what am I trying to do? I am literally seeking failure. Because by seeking failure, meaning I'm no longer able to lift the weight, I lifted it so many times, I can't even lift it anymore. By seeking failure, I break down the muscle, which then leads to the muscle getting bigger and stronger. And so it's the same thing when it comes to your mind. It's the same thing when it comes to you in business, that if you are willing to seek failure, you will build up your entrepreneurial muscle. You will build up your mental muscle. And if you can do this, you will go on to succeed. So failure is not the opposite of success. Failure is a part of success. And so guys, if you got something from today's message, I thought today's message was extremely powerful. If you got something from today's message, Take it, apply it, and go be better in this world with it. We need to shift the way that the world views things, right? Not everything that's considered quote unquote negative is negative. It's just a bad labeling. And if we can help those around us shift their labeling by us shifting our labeling, we can turn this entire world into a lot more positive of a place. We can turn your business environment into the culture you're trying to create into a lot more of a positive place. And if we can do that, everybody wins. And so if you got something out of today's message, if you could do me a favor, like, share, subscribe. As you guys know, we put out all this content for free for you, not for me. I just do it to try to make a difference. All I ask is that if I made a difference in your mind and or your life, that you tell a friend, you share other people, and you have them subscribe as well. So that being said, guys, God bless, and I'll see you guys next week on the Leaders Only podcast.
Let's get it. 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 Yeah.